Mula na rin sa mga anak ng mga magsasaka ang gustong sumunod sa mga yapak nila.
Itinuturing ang Pilipinas bilang isang bansang sagana sa agrikultura.
Dahil naganap pa rin ang gutom sa bansa.
Natatakot ang Department of Agrarian Reform sa posibleng food shortage kung magpatuloy
There's no
ito.
way to earn a living to feed.
Bitin kapag walang-wala na sa budget.
Can redistributing land truly pave the way for lasting social justice?
Step into history with my team, Kelsey, Leslie, and me, Pamela. As we guide you through Chapter 13 of Unraveling the Past, Readings in Philippine History, authored by Maria Camagay, Jopol Ancheta, Michael Bernal, Francisco Guyang, Francis Malban, and Don D. Ramos II, giving primary focus on the Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Law of 1988, Republic Act No. 6657, and its mission to address land inequality in the Philippines. We aim to provide an in-depth understanding of the law's objectives, challenges, and its lasting impact on Filipino farmers, the agricultural sector, and rural communities. This analysis will also shed light on the broader implications of the law for social justice and economic development in the country. As we explore this significant law, let us take a moment to reflect on its essence through the thoughts of our team.
In the struggle for justice,
land is more than property.
It is power.
Before diving into the law itself, let's first take a look at the broader historical context and the individuals behind the Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Law. The origin of the Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Law of 1988, also known as the Republic Act No. 6657, was enacted under the leadership of President Maria Corazon Cory Aquino, the first female president of the Philippines. Aquino's presidency, which lasted from 1986 to 1992, was a turning point for the nation, following the People Power Revolution that ousted Ferdinand Marcos and ended decades of authoritarian rule.
Tanging kailangan natin ngayon ay katahimikan, hindi ang kawalan ng paggalang para kanino man. Subalit, katahimikang may paggagalang at katarungan para sa lahat. Maaring hindi magtagumpay ang ating mga inisyatibo at alam na natin ito. Subalit bago ang lahat, ay dapat nating alisin ang lahat ng pag-aalinlangan.
Discussed and debated the issues for longer than any of us care to recall at this time. The time is up. A decision has been made. Before announcing it formally at this meeting, let me reiterate the principles of my idea of agrarian reform. Agrarian reform is a means, one of many, to the highest aim I have set my administration, the elimination of poverty by putting the Filipino to productive work that will pay him a decent livelihood. The objective is higher productivity and higher incomes for as many Filipinos as quickly as possible. The prosperity and well-being, not necessarily the equality of all, is our aim. That is why I have said that agrarian reform cannot merely subdivide the present miseries on the land. It must effect a substantial improvement. The key, therefore, is the creation of wealth in agriculture, which is the main feature of our economy. By that creation, we hope to establish a firm foundation for the industrialization of our country that can alone assure its final and genuine independence and a sustained improvement in the lives of our people. The discussions during the preparation of this program have convinced me that the Constitution was wise to provide for the Common Council of Executive and Legislature in the full implementation of agrarian reform in our country. The proclamation and executive order go as far as the Constitution and a sense of realism allow me. In this proclamation and order, the executive has said the final word. What remains now is for you, my extensions and instrumentalities, to carry out the law as therein set forth.
The law's creation was influenced by Aquino's political background and the broader socio-economic conditions of the country at that time. Her admission was tasked with addressing the deep inequalities in land ownership that had long been a source of unrest and conflict, particularly in rural areas. The Agrarian Reform Law was a response to systemic oppression of landless Filipino farmers, who from generation had struggled under a feudal-like system controlled by wealthy landowners. Proclamation No. 131 issued by the Aquino administration on July 22, 1987, laid the groundwork for the Agrarian Reform Program, making it clear that all agricultural lands, both public and private, were to be distributed to farmers. This ambitious move aimed to address the historical injustice faced by the tenants, who had long been dependent on the landlords for access to land but without any formal rights to ownership.
Number 10, an agrarian reform fund is set up at 50 billion pesos from 1987 to 1992 with a supplement of 2.7 billion pesos for 1987.
One of the key features of the Agrarian Reform Program was the establishment of the Agrarian Reform Fund, which amounted to 50 billion pesos to help cover the costs of implementing the program from 1987 to 1992. This was spearheaded by the Department of Agrarian Reform, also known as the DAR, by promoting the Land Tenure Improvement Program, also known as the LTIP. This included financial aid, training, and infrastructure to ensure that farmers could effectively use the land they received.
Despite the promising objectives of the Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Program, its implementation faced significant challenges that hindered its success up until now.
Dapat po namin bayaran sa bangko. Yung sa land bank. Ang problema po, bakit po yung mga iba namin, mga kasamaan na kinansel yung mga klowa nila. Pinakita po sa amin ng land bank yan, yung 10 farmers na cancellation. Maliban po sa amin, meron pa pong iba. Pero sa kasalukuyan po, ang pinagtataka namin kung bakit ikinansel ang aming mga klowa.
Paano ngayon ang closing mo? Tumatanggap ka nga ng honor mo, pero wala ka namang makain sa bahay. Ang sabi ng anak ko, bakit ba tayo nagtitiis ng ganito? Ano ba talagang kailangan natin gawin?
Remember how armed men hired by the sugar plantation they once worked for stormed into their home and drove them away. They say they want to own the land their family had been farming for generations. And though this recent incident may have been painful, their struggle has been a long one.
They continue to harass us, they continue to displace us. Land is important to us, it's our life. We will fight for it, even if it means more of us will die in the process. We stand united.
One of the most pressing issues was corruption, particularly in the process of land valuation and redistribution. A notable example is the Garchi-Torena case, which became emblematic of how vested interests could manipulate the system. The case involved allegations that members of the politically influential Garchi-Torena family and government officials had colluded to inflate the valuation of lands intended for redistribution. This allowed them to receive excessive compensation from the government while farmers struggled to access the land promised to them.
Umupa ang tensyon sa Hacienda Luisita.
Nananawagan ang mga magsasaka ng Hacienda Luisita kay Chief Justice Renato Corona na patunayang tunay siyang nagsisilbi sa taong bayan.
Sa tanggapan ng Department of Agrarian Reform, ang mga magsasakang galit dahil hindi pa rin daw na ipapamahagi sa kanila ang lupain ng Hacienda Luisita.
Another critical challenge was the political influence exerted by powerful land-owning families, which undermined the program's goals. Even President Corazon Aquino, whose administration championed the Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Program, was not immune to these complications. Her family's ownership of Hacienda Luisita, one of the largest agricultural estates in the Philippines, became a lightning rod for criticism. Despite her administration's efforts to pursue agrarian reform, Hacienda Luisita, owned by the Cojuangco family, remained largely undistributed during her presidency.
Sino na iba, yung pamilya nila, andyan na lahat, Servillano Aquino, naging delegate, karoon na sila ng Vice President ng Pilipinas, si Benigno Aquino I, naging senador na yan, si Ninoy Aquino, naging mayor, naging governor, naging senador, President Aquino, naging presidente, si Butch Aquino, si Tess Aquino Oreta.
This situation exposed a deeper issue, the entrenchment of land-owning elites in both the political and economic aspects. Furthermore, the resistance from landowners was not merely legal or bureaucratic. It was often physical. Farmers and agrarian reform advocates faced harassment, violence, and even death in some cases when trying to claim land awarded to them under the program. The program ultimately revealed the complexities of addressing historical injustices in a society where power and wealth remain deeply intertwined. The law's detailed provisions, outlined in 2 chapters, sections 1 to 11, provide the procedural guidelines for land acquisition, distribution, and the necessary support systems to make the agrarian reform successful.
Chapter 1, Preliminary Chapter. Section 1, this act shall be known as the Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Law of 1988. Section 2, Declaration of Principles and Policies. The state upholds a comprehensive agrarian reform program, or CARP, to promote social justice, rural development, and equitable land distribution. It prioritizes the welfare of landless farmers and farm workers, ensuring their right to own or benefit from the lands they till, while respecting landowners' rights to just compensation. The program includes incentives for voluntary land sharing, support for agricultural productivity, and sustainable use of marine resources for subsistence fishermen. It emphasizes the social responsibility of land ownership, fosters industrialization and employment, and allows for public land development to boost economic growth. Chapter 2, Section 4, Scope. The Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Law of 1989 states that the law covers all public and private agricultural lands, regardless of tenure or crop type. This includes lands specified under Proclamation No. 131 and Executive Order No. 229, as well as other public lands suitable for agriculture. Specifically, the law applies to A. All alienable and disposable public lands suitable for agriculture, with restrictions on reclassifying forest or mineral lands. B. Excess lands of the public domain as defined. C. government-owned land suitable for agriculture, and D. Private agricultural lands regardless of the type of crops grown. Section 5, Schedule of Implementation, states that the distribution of all lands covered by the Act must start immediately and be completed within 10 years from when the Act becomes effective. Section 6, Retention Limits. Landowners may retain a maximum of 5 hectares of agricultural land with up to 3 hectares awarded to each qualifying child, 15 years or older, tilling or managing the land. Original homestead grantees can retain their homestead if they continue cultivation. Tenants on retained land can choose to stay as leaseholders or relocate as beneficiaries within 1 year, but their tenure prior to the Act's approval is guaranteed.
Section 7 Priorities. The Act outlines a 10-year plan for acquiring and distributing agricultural lands in 3 phases. Phase 1, 4 years. Immediate distribution of rice and corn lands, idle or abandoned lands, voluntary offered private lands, government foreclosed lands, and PCGG acquired lands. Phase 2, 4 years. Distribution of public agricultural lands, lands for resettlement, and private lands over 50 hectares, prioritizing landless farmers. Phase 3, 7 years. Gradual distribution of private lands, starting with large estates about 24 hectares in Year 4, and smaller holdings up to 24 hectares in Year 6. The schedule aims to enhance productivity and ensure adequate program resources, guided by PARC. Section 8. Multinational Corporations. Mandates that lands owned by multinational corporations, government-owned or controlled corporations, and operational agribusiness or agro-industrial associations must be acquired and distributed immediately upon the Act's effectiveness, with the process to be completed within 3 years. Section 9. Ancestral Lands. This recognizes that ancestral lands of indigenous culture communities, including lands continuously possessed and occupied by the community. It ensures the protection of these communities' rights to their ancestral lands, respecting the torrent system. The section also upholds the principle of self-determination and autonomy, recognizing and respecting the community's system of land ownership, land use, and dispute resolution. Section 11. Commercial Farming. States that commercial farms, including those for livestock, poultry, aquaculture, fruit, vegetables, and plantations, will be subject to compulsory acquisition and distribution of 10 years after the Act's effectiveness. For new farms, the 10-year period begins with the start of commercial production. During this period, the government will begin acquiring these lands, compensating owners fairly, and prioritizing the transfer to organized cooperatives or associations which will manage the land for worker beneficiaries.
In conclusion, the enactment of the Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Law in 1988 marked a pivotal moment in Philippine history. Under the leadership of President Corazon Aquino, this law sought to address one of the nation's most enduring issues: the unequal distribution of land. With the People Power Revolution still fresh in the national consciousness, the Aquino administration aimed to heal the socio-economic wounds left by decades of feudal landholding systems. Though ambitious in its goals, the implementation of the Agrarian Reform Law faced significant challenges, including political resistance, corruption, and the complex realities of land redistribution. The law, which emphasized land as a social resource, attempted to balance the needs of farmers with the rights of landowners, while also seeking to promote rural development and social justice. Despite these efforts, questions about the true political will behind the reform, particularly concerning powerful land-owning families, continued to haunt the process. Nevertheless, the Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Law remains a landmark attempt to transform Philippine society. Its legacy is mixed, as many farmers still face challenges in accessing the full benefits of land reform. Yet, the law set in motion a broader conversation about land ownership, inequality, and the pursuit of social justice. As we reflect on this, It's important to remember that the struggle for land reform is not just about land. It is about power, justice, and the creation of a more equitable society. Even decades after its passage, the issues raised by the Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Law continue to resonate, reminding us of the long road to genuine social change.